time for my virtual Jericho with John Mayer.
Hello, welcome. Little Clarendon Street. Now that should be the thriving hub of our community. Majority of the traders there are now coffee shops, wine bars and restaurants. Other cities have their restaurant quarter. Let's look at Little Clarendon Street last Saturday. But it was pretty desolate. It doesn't usually get much busier than that on a Saturday night. Should it be? Does it have to be? Is there another way to encourage cafe culture right in the heart of Jericho, day and evening? Others have evening destinations to go to. Where's Oxford's? Here to discuss that, 5 people whose aim is to attract paying, eating and drinking custom to Little Clarendon Street. Kent Barker is the new kid on the block. His Wildings Wine Bar restaurant opens on May the 26th. You can sample it in a My Jericho tasting trip. Go to your email to find out more details. We've already had 10 bookings, but I'm sure Kent will find room for more. Josh Baber is an old hand. He runs the Oxford Wine Cafe on the corner, and his company now has 3 businesses in Little Clarendon Street. Mike Davidson is the operations director for the company which runs the Duke of Cambridge and other pubs. Charlie McDonald runs Angels across the road from the Duke of Cambridge, and Peter Drabnik runs Common Ground, the coffee shop for those with laptops and high IQs. And we've also got local politicians who should make it happen. Local city councillors James Fry and Louise Upton, and county councillor Susanna Pressel, all freshly reminted after last week's election. No Jericho councillors today, sadly. They couldn't find a space in their busy diaries. Let's go to the traders first. Kent, you just spent a lot of money coming to Jericho. What's your dreams for Little Clarendon Street in a year's time, 5 years' time? You're muted. Put yourself on, please. You're muted. You're muted. Okay.
Right, there we go. Sorry about that.
Here we are. Right, what's your dream for Little Clarendon Street in a year's time and 5 years' time?
Yeah, I mean, we set out on the project that we're on at the moment because we saw a huge gap in the high street where traditional, slightly less exciting and interesting brands were disappearing and leaving big gaps. And we felt that there was a place for exciting independent. And you can see Little Clarendon Street got a raft of that, and we feel very excited to be part of it now. And, you know, I knew it 20 years ago when I was working for Oddbins, and I used to supply the Duke of Cambridge with Lee, my now general manager, the general manager there. So I've known it when it was a lot more vibrant, a lot busier. And, you know, I haven't seen it really since I've only been coming since lockdown. So I've only ever seen it really quiet. I would love to be able to get tables and chairs outside, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to at the moment. We've got a reasonably good sized garden. Yeah, I see other parts of Oxford and and what's going on the streets, and it looks exciting. And I'd love us to be part of that.
What are you going to be offering?
So we've got we're a wine-based business. We have 400 wines. We have a retail shop that specializes in sustainable, organic, biodynamic wines. We have a wine bar, a cafe, a restaurant, and we've got a private dining room function room upstairs, which can take 16. And, you know, whilst wine is the center of what we do, our food is hugely important. We try as much as is physically possible to be local. We source absolutely anything and everything we can locally. We see that as really important. We try to absolutely minimize our impact on the planet. We see that as absolutely vital for what we do, and we try to do everything in our power to do that. We even tried to get a hydrogen boiler in, believe it or not. They don't exist, it turns out. So yeah.
How many covers can you take at maximum in the new Wildings?
So yeah, without social distancing, we can take just over 80 covers in the restaurant. We've got 20 in the bar, 16 in the private dining room, and 68 in the garden.
So that's, hang on a minute, my sums, that's 150 plus, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if we had every seat full, we'd be about 180.
Gosh, and how are you going to achieve that?
As in how many?
How are you going to attract people to Wild Inns?
Well, yeah, I think it's a very good point. We work very hard on our social media. We work very hard on the offering and what we give people when they come in, and we're totally focused on the customer experience. It's absolutely vital for us. That's first and foremost in what we do. So we're a very service orientated business. So there's an awful lot of what's going on the high street is making operations as simple and peopleless as possible. We slightly gone the other way, which is counterintuitive to making vast amounts of profit, but we see it as intrinsically part of what we do. So for instance, everything is table service. We don't have we have a bar, a reasonably large bar, but you can't go up to it and just help get a served a drink there. Everything is done at table. And that fits quite nicely with where we're at in the cycle of the pandemic at the moment, but that's our ethos anyway. And we try to do as much, as possible to make it a really nice, enjoyable time when you're in the building.
Now, you've done a similar thing in Bath. How is that place doing?
So we're in, not in Bath itself, we're in a place called Frome in Somerset. It's a small West Country market town of 26,000 people. We have an amazing site in the middle of the old historic part of Frome. I have to say, 2 and a bit years ago when we opened, it was total chaos. We had no idea what we'd done and taken on, and we were full from morning, noon and night. And I'd be lying to say that it was a smooth run-in. It was very hard at times, but we learned a huge amount there, and I think that's what's given us the confidence to be able to come to a vibrant, buzzing city like Oxford and feel that we can actually, open on the high street in such a place.
If the cars were banned on, say, Friday and Saturday evenings, what difference would that make to you?
It would give us the ability to move tables and chairs outside and give it that vibrancy that, it's quite a European thing. So the business idea comes from me traveling around the world in my former role as a director in wine companies. And there I saw the Enotecas in Italy, Spanish equivalents, and, all around the world, you see this culture which has the outside seating, people having a glass of wine, an aperitif. You had quite a bit of retail going on within the Enotecas, plus you had the wine bar, some food offerings, and they vary from simple platters. And so for me, that just rounds the whole circle. It brings it right back to the origins of the idea, which is this lovely sort of place to come and spend time and relax. And, if you've got seats outside on the street, I mean, how lovely is that? That really does have that gorgeous European feel that we all would love to have. And sometimes our weather doesn't allow it, but we crave it, I think. And I think much more so since lockdown. I think we've all sat freezing our bits off in gardens, in pubs and various places. And I think we've got a lot more used to being outside and dining outside, and we really have embraced it. Obviously, we've had no choice, but I don't think we're going to go back to what we see as normal. I think there'll be increasing demand for that.
How much have you spent on this little venture?
It's a very, very interesting question. It's substantial. I mean, we took the Café Rouge site, which had been, I hope nobody's from Café Rouge, but I mean, it was appallingly looked after. It was massively underinvested in. I don't think they'd spent a penny on it in years. And I bought the fixtures and fittings for £5,500, thinking I got a mega bargain. And now I look back on it going, it was an utter waste of £5,500. I've thrown out literally everything that they had there. It was all broken. Even the extraction system, I've just had to spend. I had a bill yesterday that I wasn't expecting for £2,500 to replace all the inner workings of it. So without directly answering your question, it's a long way towards £1 million.
Well, okay, stick around because now, Josh, are you there? Are you serving the customer? Josh Maber from Oxford Wine Cafe. Yeah. Now you're actually the old boy on the block, the cafe on the corner. How do you feel A, about the new person coming in, and B, about pedestrianisation? Is Josh there? Hello. If he's not there, if not, don't worry. We'll go to Mike Davison from the Duke of Cambridge. Mike, when are you opening, and what would you see? What difference would it make if there's if cars are banned on Friday and Saturday nights?
Far fewer drunks would be knocked over, but apart from that, it's no. To repeat what's already been said, the core concept of the alfresco area, the fact that people have changed and got so used to drinking and eating outside over the lockdown period and over the time people haven't been allowed in. I've said to a couple of people that the one benefit we may see from this is that we actually develop an alfresco culture for the first time in however long, weather permitting, little as it may do. So yeah, and even when functionality becomes an issue, even when the weather is too cold and people don't necessarily want to sit outside, the aesthetic value of having the capacity to expand onto the street is a huge thing as well.
Your bosses, Julian and his wife, have been very clever at using the space at the Anchor. Do you see anything like that at Duke of Cambridge?
Well, the expanse of that structure is intrinsically linked to the fact that it is permanent. So Justine, who came up with the idea and put it all into motion, is remarkably good at looking at things and seeing their value and also seeing their potential. I mean, she promoted me, so I'm not going to argue with that. But so I think that we definitely wouldn't go down the route of a few tables to go outside. It would definitely be something a lot more elaborate.
Such as, give us a clue.
I genuinely, I haven't been let in on this. Knowing the way that she works, it really could be anything. Although I would assume, based on previous, that something along the lines of essentially an enormously extended awning.
Right. And would you serve from inside, open a window and serve from there? Would that be?
No, we would. I mean, there's a huge service question regarding the best way of doing it. I mean, the way that we have functioned in the last year with table service has been markedly different from what we normally do. You know, we are a bar, pure and simple. And the vast majority of the time, we simply have people can reserve tables, they can sit down, but we serve at the bar, at which 2, 3, 4 deep on a Saturday night is normal. It's one long bar, which service goes over. And to begin with table service off that is a huge logistical strain, because you have 150, 180 people trying to order at the bar. You then have to find a way of serving the people who are sat behind them. There's a huge amount to think about on
that. So probably more staff. But so on a good Saturday night, you get 150, 180 coming to use the Duke?
No, because our capacity is only 120. So no, we definitely don't.
And if you could use the outside, what would the capacity be?
At 60.
All right. Is Josh back with us yet? Can we go to him? Josh,
yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. You've got to serve and make money. Josh, you're the old kid on the block. You know, you're in the wine bar in the corner. Imagine what Little Clarendon Street will be like in a year and in 5 years' time.
what would it be like?
Yes, if there was no cars on, say, 2 evenings a week.
I think I honestly think it would be a good thing. I think it's just you just got to be you've got to sort of manage. You've got to be smart about the way you manage it. Think about sort of delivery times and people getting their deliveries and stuff like that. So it might be a case of sort of maybe just closing the road in the evening or between a certain time when you don't get a lot of deliveries. You don't want to impact loads of other businesses that are getting deliveries. I know, is it Central Living over the road? They get sort of a lot of deliveries of like big heavy furniture and things like that. So I wouldn't want to screw them. If their big lorry, their furniture turns up, to like carry it down the road and stuff.
Would you want it closed every evening or 2 evenings a week? Or
yeah, I mean, I'm definitely. I completely agree with what Mike said. Like with people are sort of. They're used to being outside. They've been dining outside for a while now, and it would be lovely in the summer to have some sort of close off the street. Like you say, couple evenings a week or something like that. In the evenings on a nice summer evening, and sit out there with a glass of wine, because we don't really have a big outside space here, so it would be awesome to have that, I think. But as long as it's done like correctly and thoughtfully, I think it would be perfect.
What's your capacity now, Josh, in the wine cafe?
Yeah, so I think right now with the COVID restrictions, it's about 80. I think 80 people. But I think with when the COVID restrictions are relaxed, we can probably fit maybe 100, 120.
And if you could go onto the street, how many more do you think you could fit?
Potentially another 50 or 60, I reckon, depending on how much space is allocated for us. Yeah.
But you're only one of 3 sandwich businesses in Jericho, in Little Clarendon Street. How would they benefit from no traffic?
Well, do you mean the shop up the road as well?
Yeah, shop, and also the area up above it. What's it called?
The wine room. Yeah, the wine rooms. Well, I think the thing is, there's never been a lot of parking around here anyway. So the little parking that you would take up with seats and stuff outside wouldn't really. I don't think it would impact us a lot, because there's only about 8 parking spaces on this road anyway, and no one uses it. You don't get a lot of people driving here. They always walk here or get a cab and stuff like that. So I think when they shut Walton Street, it never really made much sense to me. I always thought Little Clarendon Street, you should keep that open and then pedestrianise Little Clarendon Street. It makes much more sense to do that way. In terms of the shop, they get deliveries normally before midday. So as long as it's not shut before midday, it wouldn't impact them at all, really. I don't think. It might even improve their trade, I think. Nobody drives down and picks up wine, so in that shop. It's all local people, local Jericho people buying a bottle of wine.
What practical measures would you and Ted like to make towards making this happen? Are you prepared to join a little committee of traders to start to apply for it?
Yeah, we'd be 100% on board to do that. Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to make it happen. And I think if we could sit down with all the other people on the street and just sort of say, well, someone up the road might say, well, actually, I get all my deliveries sort of come in at 3:00, and I need the road open then. And you kind of think, well, okay, well, maybe we'll close from 6 p.m. or something when no one's getting any deliveries. And it's sort of, sitting down and talking about these things with your neighbours and coming to a consensus together and thinking, okay, well, this is how we can benefit. It can benefit everybody and not impact anybody at the same time negatively. So, yeah, I think if we did that and sat down with a group of people who all have their businesses on the street and came to an agreement, we could put something together. I'd love to do that. I know Ted's 100% on board with it. We've always struggled here in the summer because we've got no outside seating. So everybody wants to go to a beer garden or something like that. So our quietest months here are August is our quietest month of the year, and it always has been. We're busiest up until Christmas.
We'll move on if we can to Charlie McDonald from Angels. Charlie, you're one of the new kids on the block. How would pedestrianisation affect you?
Well, echoing really what others have said, just gives us it would give us more space. We've got big doors that we can open up the whole front of our bar out onto the street, so we could really open that up and sort of bring the outside in, which we already do anyway a bit during the summer. But as Josh was just saying, it would mean that we could actually sort of trade out onto the street as well, because obviously the pavement is very narrow and cars going past, etc. So yeah, it'd be great. And similar to Josh, August is always very quiet around there.
What's your capacity now?
Right now with COVID, our capacity is about 20. That's very small.
But normally,
normally our capacity is about 60.
And if you could trade out, what do you think it would be?
Probably add. It obviously depends on space and everything, but it would add 20 or so, I'd have thought.
And are you prepared to join with the other hospitality traders in the street to sort of push for this?
Yeah, absolutely. I know I was talking to Justine, who I think owns the Duke of Cambridge, if I'm right. I was liaising with her last year about trying to do this, basically trying to get it closed for a period of time. On Friday or Saturday nights. I think that's maybe where the idea first came from. It was her idea, but I was on board with everything she was going for. So yeah, definitely.
Stick around, Peter. You run the intellectuals Common Ground Cafe, where you need a laptop and a big IQ to be there. What difference would it make to you?
It would improve noise pollution, right? Because that street is, I don't know if you agree with me, but the trucks and the cars driving up this road, kind of make the street really loud. I don't know if it bounces off the walls or we hear it inside and it disturbs the people studying in our cafe. So I think the radical thing to do would be to close it altogether. I think it would improve everything. Yeah, just keeping it open just for deliveries doesn't make sense. I think because the trucks can always stop at Woodstock Road or Walton Street and just push the deliveries up. It's not a long stretch, so that's my take.
You don't currently open in the evenings. Would you open in the evenings if there was trade?
I would definitely, yes. There is a plan to do. To open until 8 at least. Right.
But at the moment, you've got cafe culture anyway because you use the pavement. I mean, would you use it much more than you do now?
Definitely. We use the bit under the overhang. But if we could stretch out, then I would definitely use some of the pavement.
Let me ask a question. The cycle rack outside of your premises, have you thought of moving that? It gets in the way a bit, doesn't it?
I'm a keen cyclist, and obviously, it's good to have bike parking for cyclists. So I thought of that. It would open up a little bit our space to be visible for passers-by. But I park on that space, so I don't know about it. If we could move it to the road and take one parking spot, then that would be ideal, but not that bothered.
Okay, let's move on if we can to the people who can make it happen. James Fry, he's made it happen in North Parade.
Sorry, John. I did tell you I have to leave very shortly. I have a meeting at 6. Could I possibly go first? I'll be very quick.
All right, go on then, Susanna. How are they going to make it happen?
I did tell you, didn't I? I don't know why you didn't put me earlier.
Right.
Right.
How are they going to make it happen?
I think people probably know this, but just in case some of you don't, you need to apply for a TRO, a temporary regulation order, temporary traffic regulation order. And you have to pay for that, because you have to pay for the consultation that would be needed, and it costs just over £2,000. But there is also a new outdoor seating support grant which people could apply for, so that might cover the cost of the TRO. And if you could just come together and agree on a start date and put in an expression of interest, we could start the negotiations. And I wish you all the very best of luck. I would love to see Little Clarendon Street closed every evening, or some evenings, or whenever. So good luck. And I'm really sorry I have to go to another meeting now. Thank you.
Last
Bye.
question, who do they apply to? You or the county council, or who?
There's a joint working group, which is City and County Council. And if they send things to me, I can pass it on to the right people. And I'd be very happy to help in any way. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye. All right. On to James. James Fry, who has actually made North Parade happen. He is Mr. North Parade. He's got a road close to cars there, and he's got a fortnightly market, which he actually personally runs every other Saturday. I know. I go and see him. And the Renaissance in North Parade is mainly down to him. In his part-time, he's a councillor on the City Council. James, what have they got to do? Tell them the steps.
Thank you. Well, Susanna's mentioned some of it. I mean, the thing is, I guess I would say one of the most important things is someone has to be in charge. I don't care how you decide it, but if it's a committee, unless someone is the person who responds, and the TRO actually, in my experience, you submit it to licensing at the City Council, who coordinate it with the county, with fire, with police, all the other people. So you need someone to be the person taking responsibility. And the licenses that Susanna mentioned, you need a license to hold an event, you need a license in order to have tables outside. You may get grants in an early stage. You need a public liability insurance policy for the public space, not just for traders, for the general public. You need to have some provision for parking. You have to, before you actually go and apply, you need to send letters, they call it, to frontagers. So it's not just shop owners, it's also residents, anyone who would be affected by it. And you have to show you've done it and you've sent it out. You have to think, and honestly, I'm not quite clear. I've been when Little Clarendon Street's been closed and you get outside traders and maybe music. You have to think how you're going to manage that. If you have that, then you've got issues of noise, of generators, of waste collection. All of those things, you have to have a plan so that if that's going to happen, when you apply, you can tick all the boxes and you submit something with a risk assessment and so on. In the case of North Parade, we have now someone whom we pay to set it all up, because we put up gazebos and tables and barriers and so on, and then they dismantle it and they store it somewhere. You can't just sort of leave it and hope that someone deals with that. We actually have, and it's a very low-key thing, we have a piano player who comes and people quite like it. But I don't know whether you want music equally, that has to be part of your plan and the application. But I would say the most important thing of all is that someone has to be the public face, if you like, of the application. As many people as possible should help, but you can't just leave it to be run by a committee, which is how I've ended up actually managing North Parade Market, because we couldn't rely on people in the street to take that responsibility. We only do it once a fortnight, but you may have gathered that the street is pedestrianised between 10, depends which day of the week, until 6:30 or 7:30. If it succeeds, you can then, I think, apply to try and, in our case, North Parade, to keep it closed for longer. But I mean, in the end, it has, as I think John said, it's helped to revive North Parade, which is actually, especially when there's decent weather, doing quite well. So it's worth doing, but you've got to tick lots of boxes, and someone has to take responsibility for coordinating amongst the lot of you.
Now, James, I'm quite thick, as you know. So let's go a 5-step plan. So the traders have to meet as a committee, correct? They have to then elect a chair, a front person, the chair for that.
There has to be a front person, yes.
Which is you, and I don't want the job if anybody's going to offer it to me. And then you have to then consult the frontages, which is consult the people on the street via a letter or whatever, saying what.
If people want, I mean, whoever it is, the lucky person, I can send you the drafts I've used for the frontages, for the application, for the risk assessment, can put you in touch with the public liability insurance people and the like. I can describe the steps, but still it has to be one person. I don't think you can share it very much, just for doing the administration.
How long does it all take?
I would say you need to, I know you're looking to do things fairly promptly. I would say the elapsed time, having done all these things, because we always get people coming back, and usually one authority, probably the county, comes back with often some various highways queries, which I don't think are that major. Maybe you should allow 6 weeks or so, 6 weeks to 8 weeks for the whole process, because they have to approve it. Then you've got to put the notice up in public spaces a certain time before you even have the street closure.
There is form though. I mean, I've run four fests in Little Clarendon Street, so they have applied for street closure and everything else before, with the PLI and so on. And there's one on August Bank Holiday, so it's not going to come blindsided to the county council or city council, is it?
No, I mean, it's just that I feel that because so many institutions have to be consulted, I think some of them feel to show they've read it, they have to send queries.
2,000 quid seems an awful lot of money, plus PLI. Any council grants or similar available for this? Any Rishi money?
I didn't recognise the £2,000 that Susanna mentioned. I know we don't pay that much. And I think it's helped in the case of the North Parade, because it's definitely not for profit. It doesn't make money. And maybe being a councillor, I was able to get a deal of, if you like, I still pay a licensing fee, but I don't pay it every week. So maybe you can come up with something, but you need to negotiate. But you definitely have to pay something. And don't forget, for tables on public spaces, and I don't mean under the cover of the block of flats, then that's private property. You don't need a license for a table, but you would in the street, and you have to pay for that as well.
Now, you've got some ward funds, of course, as a newly elected LA. Would you give some of that towards this little venture?
I mean, just so that you don't think this is an unlimited pot, we have a grand total, Louise and I, of £1,500 for the entire year, for everything in our ward, paying for benches, paying for, in fact, Louise paid for bike racks. You know, it's not as if we have an awful lot of cash out there. I don't want to get people to get grand ideas of how much we can chip in.
Susanna has £10,000 though, doesn't she, as a county councillor?
She has, I think she has even more, but they have to approve it each year. I don't know whether it's approved for this year.
So what advice would you give to the traders in Little Clarendon Street about ways forward then?
I mean, the key thing is, and I've said it, is I think you can't just assume if you have a committee it will somehow happen and be able to proceed seamlessly. One of you should be the public face, so that, I mean, people go on holiday or whatever, and of course you can then get someone to stand in. But I do think there has to be one person who is the public face. You can share the duties, and the rest of it is ticking boxes. And I'm very happy, if necessary, I've got my list jotted down here. I could very happily share it with someone so they can see. It's not that onerous, it's just tedious.
Okay, Louise Upton, you're a fellow councillor of James, responsible for Little Clarendon Street. How can you help them to achieve this?
Hello, John. Hello, everybody who's got a premises on Little Clarendon Street. Well, so the reason I've come to the meeting is that I used to live in Paris, and wandering around little streets with pavement cafes was one of the great pleasures, really, of living there. And I'd love to see that reproduced in Oxford. I was a student here back in the late 80s, and Little Clarendon Street used to be called Little Trendy Street then. And it was like the place to go in the evening. So I think there's huge potential there for it to happen. I touched base with our city centre manager earlier today and about this, and he says it is on the radar already. They'd started to look at it but paused because they were waiting to see what was going to be decided with the Walton Street barrier. He says clearly there are some issues about access, and there'd have to be somebody responsible for the opening and closing of the street at the beginning and the end of each of these periods. But he thought it is doable. If as long as we collaborate with the county council, it's got to be a city county thing. It is doable. So he tells me it is on the agenda for an upcoming meeting where there's a city county working group, which I guess is the thing that Susanna was referring to. So there we are. I think one good thing we could do, I guess, is to put you in touch with our city centre manager, whose whole job it is to keep our city centre thriving, and that includes you guys. So I'd like to put you in touch with him, Ian Nicholson. Other things, just a slight curveball, but the e-scooter trial that is going on in Headington at the moment is looking to, it's being run by the county, but they're thinking they want to expand it over the rest of the city potentially if it's useful. So one thing you can do, because the hire scooters have to have geo-fenced parking locations. So if there was one near Little Clarendon Street, I don't know, on Wellington Square, something like that, that would be a really good way of getting people from the city centre to you, a bit exciting, come on the scooter, and just might get people out from the city centre to you. So, or from the train station, for example, could come to you if they knew, there was a parking spot there. So that's just one idea that I had that I could throw in that might help get people to you.
Do you see any downsides to partial pedestrianisation of Little Clarendon Street?
I honestly don't. I mean, I hear what people were saying at Peter and things about you've got to allow deliveries to still be able to come, but there's plenty of, if you go to these lovely European cities where huge amounts of the centre are completely pedestrianised for most of the day, but they have a deal where they're open from 7 till 10 a.m. and 2 till 4 p.m. for deliveries to come in and go, and that works. Or the rubbish vans to come in and go. So it's got to be possible to get around any problem.
There are 3 Labour city councillors who are responsible for Little Clarendon Street. 3 or 4? Is it 3 or 4 of you?
Oh yeah, the ward boundary goes straight down the middle of the street. So the northern side has me and James, and the southern side has Alex Hollingsworth, who's very well-established councillor, and a brand new one called Lizzie Diggins. So yeah, there's 4 of us.
Do you think they'd all be in support of this?
I would imagine so. I mean, why wouldn't you? As I said, I can't see a downside. It makes far more sense, as I think Charlie may have said, to have Little Clarendon Street pedestrianised rather than Walton Street closed at the far end. Close off Little Clarendon Street rather than Walton Street. So I think it has such a lot of potential, as you say, that those overhanging sides mean that you can have places where people can sit, even if it's raining and snowing, and be warm and dry. I don't know if you've got Somerville College in on the conversation, because I think there's a lot they could do to make the walkway on their side of the road more attractive.
Jan Royal is certainly very keen on anything to do with community. Jan Royal at Somerville, as you know. and University College are very keen to collect their rents and make sure that it thrives. Let's go back to the traders. Kent, what do you feel? I'm looking for some action out of this. You spent maybe £1 million. How are you going to increase your trade? Put yourself on. Turn yourself on, please. Yes.
Yeah, that wasn't quite what I said, but sorry. I didn't quite catch your question.
The question is no. All right. You've heard the various arguments. You've heard the politicians. What are you going to do?
What am I going to do? I think it's what collectively we could do. Certainly, it's worth a discussion and exploration. I'm the new kid on the block, so I'll help and do whatever. I certainly wouldn't want to be the front man for it. I wouldn't have the time. I'm just opening a new restaurant, and but I'd be very happy to get involved as heavily as necessary outside of that. And we would see it as a huge advantage. And I'm not in total disagreement with Peter, maybe not shut it completely, but certainly I would love to see, a European street culture on Little Clarendon Street. I certainly think we have the establishments to do that. I think we have, a beautiful street, and I will, do everything I can other than being the front man for it. I'm afraid.
Why be so backwards in coming forwards? I would have thought you'd make an ideal front man.
Well, I've got quite a lot on my plate at the moment, unsurprisingly. But yeah, I'll certainly help.
Okay, Charlie, what would you want to do towards making this happen?
Well, very similar story. Very happy to be on a committee to help lead it if needs be. I'm pretty new at Angels as well. Obviously, we only took it over about 6 months before COVID hit, so we've got still a fair bit of I don't know the area maybe as well as others potentially do, but obviously better than Kent probably does. I was very happily sort of be quite forward with it. Don't know if I'll be the right person to lead it, to be honest. To be completely honest.
Mike, would you or Justine be the right people to lead this?
Sorry, I didn't catch the first bit of that.
No, this is Mike. This is the question to Mike. Mike,
Mike,
would you or Justine be prepared to lead this?
Rather unsurprisingly, I would find myself with similar issues to, I'm sure, everybody else in this conversation, and finding enough time in my week to be able to do this. In principle, I'm more than happy to. However, my commitments at the moment are, these weeks are not a good example, so I can't really say. However, at the moment, I do find myself somewhat overwhelmed with my general work in any case. To touch back on what was said earlier regarding the responsibility of people to open and close the street on a regular basis, as and when it is done, I believe that I can make provision from our company to do that. So that is certainly an aspect of it that we would be able to take. Well, not certainly, but in all likelihood. I would assume that with this sort of thing, that saying, well, one place can do it one night, one place can do it the other night, is only going to lead to a headache. And it would need to be something which is actually nailed on and centralized. So in principle, yes. Practicality, you are going to have to bear with me, I'm afraid.
Okay, Josh, the Oxford Wine Company prepared to take the lead, prepared to pull it all together?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I'll be honest. I'm in the same boat as everyone else. It's not. I'd love to do it, but if I'm being perfectly honest, there's no way I've got the time, the hours in the day to do it. So I was thinking on this because when the councillor was saying, all the stuff that he does and that, I think it almost might need someone who doesn't have a business and isn't sort of working full time plus extra already to take the lead. I don't think it would be productive if any of us did it, because we at the moment, I think all of us, especially in managers and hospitality, do a lot of hours a week, it wouldn't be fair if it wouldn't be right if I said, yeah, I'll do it, because I honestly think I wouldn't have the time to do it properly, and I'd want it to be done properly. So I was thinking you might need someone who, maybe a local resident or someone else on the street that would be willing to take the lead, rather than a business person or a manager that's working an awful lot already. I don't know. What do you think?
Would you as a group be prepared to put some money into somebody who to do this? And I don't want the job before anybody asks me.
It's not my money, but I'm pretty sure I'm sure. I know Ted is on board with this idea of having outside seating and this sort of al fresco, like have a nice glass of wine out on the street. So he's 100% on board with that. I mean, so I can't because it's not my money. I can't commit to that, but I'll definitely speak with him and sort of say I think we should contribute. So yeah,
Kent, would you chip in as well?
Yeah, no problem. In for a penny, in for a pound.
In for £1 million. So Peter, what about you? How can you move it forward?
I don't think I'm the right person for this job, because if I would pursue the full closure of the street, which not everybody wants, I guess. But I think we could find a volunteer for leading this. I could definitely advertise it in my place, or even talk to some other people who are not with us today. Maybe even Oxford Hub. I don't know. We could try.
Would you be prepared? You have to pay them. Would you be prepared to pay them?
I would definitely chip in. Yes.
Very
I
good.
have.
Well, yes,
I have one thought. Sorry to butt in.
Yes, Kent. Sorry, yeah.
I have somebody that works for me who used to, somebody that works for me that might be able to do the lead role. I could discuss it with her. She's down on Saturday.
Others are happy to do that. I mean, I think you as a group need to meet away from obviously this call and this program, but I think you as a group would benefit from a meeting at some point very soon. Maybe after lockdown is finished. James Fry, are you encouraged by what you hear, or?
Yes, sorry, I was just going to mention one other. We have experience of pedestrianisation for each day in North Parade. One very important practical issue which arises also with the market, which has been running for nearly 9 years, is there are people, residents, in your case it's not residents, it's offices and so on, who need vehicle access. I'm thinking of the university administration, the cars drive up and they go in, park under that rather ugly building. And there are also vehicles that go in on the Somerville side. That we had to try and take into account. And that was these are just practical points, but you must reflect that in whatever you come up with. And the other thing is, and you look at the shape of the street, you've got wider bits, but you've also got narrower bits. And as you come in off Woodstock Road, it's going to be harder, especially if you've got to allow for possibilities of traffic coming through, emergency, whatever, to put tables there. Anyhow, you have these practical issues to consider. But yes, I mean, it sounds as if people are supportive of the idea, but you do need one person. I mean, once it's set up, it shouldn't be that onerous. It's just a question that someone's there, each closure, to be ultimately the person who takes responsibility.
Louise, are you encouraged by what you've heard today?
I'm really encouraged. It sounds like everyone is on board with it. Yeah, and I think it just, especially if you can get somebody just to take on that, as James said, it's not sort of the initial paperwork that's going to be a pain just to get done. But once that's done, going forward, it really isn't too much work, although obviously you have got to have someone appointed to do the opening and closing. The other thing I just thought cycle parking, we are looking at changing one of the car parking spaces into cycle parking on the street. So that is hopefully going to happen in the next year, hopefully next 6 months, actually.
And that would help common ground, of course. It would be that's any other points anybody wants to raise?
Yep.
Yeah, Mike, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, my hand was going to sleep. I'm quite grateful for that. Two things to deviate from the narrative. Just to go back on regarding the idea of full closure, I think anybody with a bar or restaurant that deals with bulk delivery or bottled products or barrels of beer is going to completely understand the impracticality of an entire street closure. There needs to be an access point. And the idea of saying 8 till 12 or 2 till 4 is fine and dandy. However, everybody who works in this industry knows how unreliable delivery windows from suppliers are. Everyone has done a shift where they've been rolling barrels of beer in 5 minutes before opening because somebody's this has been broadcast. I'll moderate my language. Everybody knows the sensation of rolling barrels of beer or taking boxes of wine in 5 minutes before opening because somebody has dropped their moment. Regarding the individual person to do it, I appreciate somebody. It's been raised that there are potential people to do it. I'll put myself there as a last resort option, purely because I know that it's a very, very high priority to my bosses that this gets done. Therefore, if that becomes a sticking point, then I can find a remit to take time out of my current job to do.
Okay. Anybody else want to raise any other points before we move on to the commercial break? Yes, Peter, hands up.
Yes. I've just been thinking about this very narrow bit at the joint with Woodstock Road, and it's really dangerous spot for pedestrians and cyclists at the same time. There is cycleway one way and then driveway the other, and it's like a bottleneck. It's dangerous. I've seen a couple of near misses, and I think if we close the road, it would definitely improve that situation. But also, delivery of items is a small price to pay versus the pedestrian safety. Just wanted to raise that.
Okay. Anybody else want to raise any other points? You've all got each other's email addresses. It seems to me that somebody should move forward and loop yourselves into a group and try and arrange a face-to-face meeting, which you're allowed to do from next week, correct? I think outside, certainly, maybe inside, and take it from there. I mean, but as James says, somebody has to move it forward. It doesn't have its own momentum. Let's move on in terms of My Jericho next week. Some of you will know that Bob Dylan is 80 on the 23rd of May. Well, next Wednesday, we're going to repeat Professor Gary Browning from Brooks. He did an excellent program on Bob Dylan 80 with music and song and so on. And he's even got a local singer, Ricky Needham, playing Dylan. So do tune in for that, 19th of May. And the week after that, the 26th of May, we're going to go to Wildin to sample Kent's New Gaff. Do apply. Have a look at your emails and apply now. The first tranche is full, but we may get a second tranche or a third tranche. And finally, these things cost money. They don't come for free. So if you're feeling very generous, there is a crowdfund appeal for My Jericho. Here we are, Lloyds Bank 9626 4851 8460, and the account name is Jericho Good Works. All small gifts are received, and the final commercial break is for the Jericho Book Fair on the Sunday, the 27th of June. Keep your eyes open for that. But meanwhile, thank you to everybody, and let's hope we've moved it forward. And good night.
Thank you.
You